that will expand the relationship between the NHS and the private healthcare sector.
Where's that chatter? Where's that chatter was like, remember when you said Boris was going to undermine the NHS and it would open up more opportunities for privatization, and that didn't happen? Meanwhile, you got the Labour government being like, yes, we need to expand the private-public partnership within the NHS. All right, now let's move on to the other Commonwealth. Well, I guess the OG, England. Keir Starmer defends his record on following Musk's criticism. Now, how did this become a major story? It's because conservatives are so stupid that they forgot about the previous propaganda that they were engaging in. Here it is. Visegrad posts, only about 1% of the British population is Pakistani men, but according to the Cockbain report, they committed 80% of the gang rapes. Only 3.6% of gang rapes were committed by white men. I wonder if there is more to this data. Well, it doesn't matter, because guess what? Elon Musk has already highlighted it as though it is the case. First of all, he doesn't even know the name of the report. The Cockbain report not only doesn't endorse, but actually eviscerates the 84% claim, calling it shoddy pseudoscience. From what I understand, it's 8 total people that they did this report on, right? The Quillian report is where the 84% originates from. And out of a ton of other problems, it's literally been caught inventing numbers out of thin air. Before I start with everything, though, the stupidity of this report might be hilarious. These are real, but there's a real tragedy behind it. These are real victims, young girls and sometimes boys whose lives and childhood innocence have been shattered by such heinous predators. And tragically for them, but should be for all of us, Elon is willing and happy, just for some political points, to give a free hand to such sexual predators who made their lives a living hell, as long as they don't belong to a particular race. On the August of 2017, Muda Adil of Quilliam wrote an op-ed for The Telegraph endorsing the targeting of British Pakistani immigrants. This is old school Islam, I guess, at this point. Just, you know, something to remind people of. It's giving me flashbacks to a different era. It's giving me flashbacks to the Sargon of Akkad era. Anyway, in this op-ed, contrary to all existing public research, she claimed that shockingly, 46% of child sexual exploitation crimes were committed by Asian immigrants. Her proof for the shocking claim? Not to worry, it will come soon in an upcoming report. This statistic lent the article credibility, and what was soon a niche position found itself a home. The 46% figure was paraded around, and many used it to fears were not unfounded. It was genuinely, truly alarming. Why was an ethnic group making up 7% of the population responsible for nearly half of the child sexual exploitation crimes? The report came in December, but the proof never did. It's 69 pages, rather. They did not even bother mentioning which ethnic groups were responsible for CSE crimes. Nothing to contradict widely available evidence that it was not Asians, but whites in proportion to their population share. This is the other side of the story, by the way. It is actually still white people. At least this is the case in America, and certainly seemingly in the case of the UK as well. It is white people that are responsible for a higher share of per capita child sexual exploitation crimes than any other race. But don't stop that. Don't let that pesky little thing stop you from assuming the worst of brown people. In the report itself, though, we try to find where does the 84% figure come from. It turns out no one knows. The report claims the authors have conducted a comprehensive data analysis of 58 cases identified in the UK since 2005. But what those cases are or where they come from are not mentioned. They're just news headlines or police reports or street interviews. No one has a clue. But they do leave a hint that these aren't police records. Due to the inaccessibility of official police records, this data cannot be treated as comprehensive. So if not from police records, what exactly was used for this figure? Anything other than another statistic born out of the author's imagination. At the end, though, their own claim to objectivity falls apart as they expose the bias by automatically linking without any data that the majority of arrested Asians must also be Pakistani/Muslim. The report recognizes that there to be a disproportionate representation of males with an Asian heritage who have been convicted in such cases, with the Asian male perpetrator, white female victim dynamic serving as the prominent feature of these. Most of these men are of Pakistani Muslim origin, and the majority of their victims are young white girls. Their report suggests that the background of these men has influenced their actions. Following their usual pattern, absolutely no connection is made or evidence provided all throughout the report to suggest such. So what does the data actually say? The CSA Center Trends and Official Data from 2020 and 2021 lists the actual ethnic makeup of child sexual abuse offenses. White is leading at 89%, relative to 87% of the population, with the rest of the ethnic groups following their similar proportional population. So the readily available data not only disproves the made-up statistics that they love trafficking, but also ends up showing that if there's one group, if there's one population, I guess you could say Chinese as well, and mixed. But that's too small of a population percentage to get an accurate read on. If there's one group, however, that is responsible for more child sexual, it's less. I was wrong. I was looking at the wrong data. Chinese are responsible for less, mixed are responsible for less, black is the same, and Asian is the same. If the only group that is responsible for more of the crimes defendants proceeded against for child sexual abuse offenses is white. Chinese and other. Why is Chinese and other not considered Asian? I don't understand the British demographics. This was also another funny thing that I remember Sargon of Akkad and many others did, where they would be like, oh, the Asian designation in England, or Americans did this, where they were like, the Asian designation in England was created to hide the truth about Pakistani Muslims. They would just like, they would say that it's to make it seem like every Asian person is doing it when it's just the South Asians that are doing it. The chief prosecutor, I learned of from the Times in January 2011. I became chief prosecutor. I authorized charging Rockdale gang in June 2011. After convictions, Keir put me in charge of national response. Far-right thugs attacked my home. Thousands of rapists were brought to justice. There is no religious basis for the abuse in Rotherham. Nazir Afzal, the Crown Prosecution Service's lead on child sexual abuse, says it is about male power. Hold on. There was more to it that I wanted to cover. Why is this so important to debunk? The estimated number, 1 in 20 children in the UK have been sexually abused. Every single year, tens of thousands of girls are raped. It's an actual scary epidemic. The reason this is happening is because nothing is being done to stop this, and the horrors these young girls endure used only as a political football by people like Elon Musk, so we can direct all the anger over the issue towards halting immigration, but only for the UK. Immigration for the US is good, instead of protecting the actual victims. You can have various reasons for supporting or not supporting immigration. No, Elon wants to stop immigration into the US as well. Just not H-1B visas. You can still support your anti-immigration argument without supporting Elon's lies. Wait, what? This guy. Trust me, you can still be anti-immigrant. Just stop saying they're rapists. This is so funny. This says defendants proceeded against. Isn't the general allegation that the alleged Asian Pakistani offenders were not investigated fully? That's so funny. Yeah, dude. The British government was letting the Pakistani rapists go. People believe that, though, unfortunately. Yeah, it's as stupid an idea as undocumented immigrants get more social safety nets than natural-born U.S. citizens. Anyway, let's hear what Keir Starmer had to say about Elon Musk.
Season of peace and goodwill long gone. The PM...
For also for the British racists, it's such a funny argument because it almost seems like they're saying, why won't they let us do the rapes, yeah? We want to be files too, yeah? Why are you letting just the South Asian migrants do it, innit? When my mate does a pedophilia, he goes to proper prison, yeah? But you let him go. You let the Pakistanis go, innit? It's just a little bit of nonsense. Why can the societal elites engage in it? Jimmy fucking Savile, yeah? He did it. It's a part of me culture. I'm sure they loved you in London.
At a hospital in Surrey. A new year, but the same old challenges. How to relaunch...
Yeah. Back in the day, paedophiles could be elevated to the highest ranks of society, but wokeism killed it. We can't have these beautiful paedophiles like Jimmy Savile nowadays because woke killed it.
Launch his agenda with so many noisy distractions.
Do you need to take that?
Yeah, definitely.
What today was meant to be about, his big plan to cut hospital waiting lists. More local hubs and more involvement from the private sector.
I welcome a new agreement that will expand the relationship between the NHS and the private healthcare sector.
Where's that chatter? Where's that chatter was like, remember when you said Boris was going to undermine the NHS and it would open up more opportunities for privatization, and that didn't happen? Meanwhile, you got the Labour government being like, yes, we need to expand the private-public partnership within the NHS.
That's more beds, more operations, more care available to the NHS, treating patients free at the point of use, targeted at where we need them most.
But the PM's plans
I do not believe that there is any room for public-private partnership in this regard. Take it over by force. Take it over by force. Make it public. Make it all public. Keep funding it.
Shadowed by vicious attacks from the world's richest man, Elon Musk using his social media platform X to launch an onslaught against the PM, accusing him of being complicit in the rape of Britain for failing to tackle, while personally attacking one of Starmer's ministers. He called your safeguarding minister...
Dude, he said it's a rape genocide. Elon Musk said what's going on in the UK is a rape genocide. Meanwhile, there is a literal happening, but Elon is obviously in support of that, you know, because it's happening in Gaza.
He called your safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips, an evil witch, a rape genocide apologist who should be put in jail. Does that sort of abuse of a minister make you feel angry? And what is your response to that?
Those that are spreading lies and misinformation as far and as wide as possible, they're not interested in victims. They're interested in themselves. Jess Phillips has done 1,000 times more about when it comes to protecting victims of sexual abuse.
You believe in a private-public partnership for some industries? What an absolutely dog shit take. The worst I've ever heard from you, maybe. Jesus Christ, how willfully regressive. What? What did I say? What? No, I was criticizing him, saying that the private industries need to open up more public beds. I was criticizing that take. Never mind, I'm tripping then, lol. Yeah, you misunderstood. I was saying the opposite of what you're saying. I especially don't agree with that. If there's supposed to be a public-private partnership, it should only exist in the currently full-blown private sectors, where the public, where the government funds initiatives to compete with the private marketplace in an effort to reduce prices. But there is no such space for that in a sector that is born out of inelastic demand, such as healthcare.
Abuse throughout her entire career. I'm prepared to call out this for what it is.
Typically reserved, today the Prime Minister impassioned.
What I won't tolerate is politicians jumping on the bandwagon simply to get attention, when those politicians sat in government for 14 long years, tweeting, talking, but not doing anything about it. Now so desperate for attention that they're amplifying what the far right is saying.
But the Conservatives doubling down and promising a push in the Commons for a national inquiry.
Keir Starmer's claims this morning are absolutely disgraceful. It is not correct to brand as far right people who are raising legitimate concerns about the systemic, organised gang rape of vulnerable young girls.
Dude, it's crazy that they brought back the old method. They brought back the old method that, like, the British government is secretly, because of woke, defending, like, what they suspect is brown people doing mass child grooming, and the government is like hiding the truth.
This wasn't the start to the year that Number 10 expected, but far from being knocked off course. I'm told it was a deliberate choice by the Prime Minister to wade into this row, partly because he's angry about the safety risks it's posing for his MPs, but also because, in the words of one ally, he's authentically passionate about tackling child sexual exploitation and simply wasn't prepared to duck the issue. To that end, the government today announced plans to strengthen laws on child sexual abuse, but that's unlikely to calm a row that's as much about personality.
Yeah, it's born out of nothing. Elon Musk says Farage doesn't have what it takes to lead reform. Oh my God, dude. He's ruining everyone else's as well. Jimmy the Giant posted this, by the way. Low key.
Welcome to
Dr. Ella Cockbain talk about the grooming gang convo, which we can dive into in a little bit.
Political romance is over. Before Christmas, Nigel Farage posed with Elon Musk at Donald Trump's Florida estate, along with Reform UK's treasurer Nick Candy, in front of a portrait of America's next president. There were rumours the world's richest man might bankroll reform. But Nigel Farage's mistake, it seems, was not backing...
Oh, USA! USA! Dark MAGA! Dark MAGA! Oh! Dude, if I was a European politician, I would be banning every American social media platform, but especially Twitter. I think start with Twitter, you know what I mean? And then the rest will fall in line. Many of them already comply with EU restrictions anyway. What? Keith Woods, YouTube, biggest Elon Glazer? Isn't this guy a white nationalist as well? Keith Woods? Nigel Farage is England's last hope. Support this man. Nigel Farage should be in charge of the UK right now, to be honest. The Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Spineless and self-serving. Nigel Farage isn't the leader Britain needs. Let them fight.
Elon Musk all the way after his incendiary attacks on the government over...
Dude, why aren't you covering real news like chopped chin and I bought property in Egypt? Please, Hasan, sabe us? What?
Historic child grooming scandals. The owner of X suggested Keir Starmer failed to pursue rapists when chief Crown prosecutor and promoted a video of jailed far-right campaigner Tommy Robinson. Nigel Farage said about Elon Musk...
The fact that he supports me politically and supports reform doesn't mean I have to agree with every single statement he makes on X. I think I've made it perfectly clear that I don't agree with everything he stands for, but I do believe in free speech. I think he's a hero.
But it seems that wasn't enough for Elon Musk. When he woke up stateside, he turned on Nigel Farage, saying the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Elon Musk's new favourite seems to be Tommy Robinson, who used to head the English Defence League, whom he says was put in prison for telling the truth about Britain. He was actually jailed for contempt of court.
We make Britain great again!
Nigel Farage, who's in the middle of a series of rallies, has said Elon Musk's broadside is a surprise. He's a remarkable individual, he said, but Tommy Robinson is not right for reform. Never mind that he says he's never asked to join the party, although some of its members are supporters of his. The government too is having to deal with Elon Musk's current obsession with British politics, specifically his criticism of the records of the Prime Minister and Jess Phillips and his call for a public inquiry into child sexual exploitation.
We've had an independent inquiry on child sexual exploitation. Not a single one of those recommendations was implemented by the last government. We are determined to implement those recommendations. And when it comes to the Prime Minister, our Victims Minister Jess Phillips, these are people who in their professional lives outside politics have put more rapists, wife beaters and paedophiles behind bars than their critics could ever do.
The previous Conservative government also declined to lead an investigation into grooming in Oldham, but the party is now calling for a national inquiry.
What is clear to everybody, apart from the Labour government, is that we do need a proper public inquiry to get to the bottom of the truth behind this, so lessons can be learned and those people who are guilty of covering this up can be brought to justice.
Elon Musk has power and influence and did have a soft spot for Nigel Farage. But in the end, his intervention in UK politics put pressure on the relationship, and it could be the end of the affair.
Indeed, reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Mark Owen Jones, who's an associate professor of media analytics at Northwestern University in Qatar and an expert on disinformation. I began by asking, with Musk turning his fire on Nigel Farage after days of attacking Keir Starmer, what's going on?
Well, you might argue it's the snake eating its tail. I think Elon Musk is slightly upset, perhaps, that Farage didn't completely endorse Musk's support for Tommy Robinson, who, as everyone knows, is a far-right anti-Islam activist. And Elon Musk seems to support Tommy Robinson quite a lot. And Farage has been sort of more reluctant to embrace Tommy Robinson. And it seems that Musk really wants to sort of encourage the kind of far-right politics in Europe that is very potently, not just anti-migrant and anti-immigrant, but anti-Muslim. And I think Tommy Robinson embodies that. And so whilst Farage is probably seething deep down, I'm sure he knows that if he engages in a feud with Musk, that might sort of burn bridges with Musk, might prevent the possibility.
Bro admits it. Insane thing. We're currently losing money on OpenAI Pro subscriptions. People use it much more than we expected. Okay, dude.
Ability of getting a lot of money to reform and ultimately burn an important bridge with Donald Trump. Let's not forget that Farage is trying to position himself as a link between the UK and the US and talking about how we can perhaps facilitate a trade deal.
Why do you think that Musk is going about this in this way? Why do you think he's posting more, getting more stridently involved in other countries' politics?
I think there's a number of things at play. I think one, Musk is himself an ambitious person, not just in terms of his commercial and economic projects, but I think his taste of notoriety, especially through social media, and then his subsequent buying of X has given him a taste for political power. And if you look at Musk's tweets over the lifetime, you can see that increasingly he's tweeting more. His tweets are getting more neurotic, more political. So I think increasingly Musk is showing himself to have been, I argue, radicalized by his own platform and by his own fame.
Well, he would call himself a free speech absolutist. I do wonder what his end game is, what his strategy is to fire off all of these different tweets.
There's a number of things that I think are at stake here. You could argue that his backing of Trump was...
Oh, yeah, this was awesome. I saw this FUR word right after he said, please post a bit more positive, beautiful, or informative content on this platform. Now, what's funny about that is a lot of people were mad at Elon for saying it, but I will bravely say what others are afraid, which is that he has the pass. Okay. I mean, come on. He is incredibly disabled. It's his word, dude. Like, what are we talking about? Are we just going to police? Are we doing that now? Like, we're just, it's like the gayest man you know saying the F word on the timeline. Isn't it your word too, technically? Yeah, okay, let's chill out. I'm like a day walker, okay? To the uninitiated, okay? I'm like a super white passing, like quarter black person. You know what I mean? Like if a person like that drops the M word, a lot of other people are gonna be like, whoa, what the fuck did you say? You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. Where if I drop the R word, everyone's gonna be like, chill. Wait, what is this? FUR word came Musk's response containing a slur used against people who have mental disabilities. He then replied saying yes to another person who said, we could have avoided a lot of disasters by simply telling leftist R words to shut the fuck up. Musk appears to have made a conscious choice to reintroduce the word into the right-wing parlance of late, often using it on his X platform. I think what's really funny, an analysis of his X post and replies show that he has used the term, or a variant of it, 15 times since December 20th, having never used it before. So I think one of the funniest parts about this is that Elon Musk is like, what, 53 years old? Like, who was like, oh man, I'm going to reintroduce a slur into my lexicon at the brittle old age of 53. I thought you meant N-word pass for a second. What? Yeah, not that. This is Tiny's biggest impact on the political discourse, getting people to say the R word again. I don't think you can give that to him.
To hopefully win power, and that was a bet that would basically allow Musk to essentially get rid of all the legal cases against his companies. I think there's a lot to be said for power and impunity. Let's not forget that he's endorsed Trump and Tommy Robinson, both of whom are, well, Trump's a felon, a convicted felon. Tommy Robinson's in prison. And I think for someone like Musk, he sees his influence and the access to power as a form of impunity, which for him means that as long as he's in power or attached to power or has the ability to influence politics, he is essentially untouchable.
But will he have that power if he falls out with President-elect Trump?
The question is, if he does fall out with Trump, yes, Trump is the president, argument more powerful, but I think Musk has the ego and the level of narcissism that he might...
The R word never went away, dude. Yeah, I know. In most circles. It's just, I feel like when you go above a certain age, or if you're like in a relatively professional space, though, yeah, no one's going to say it. It's like the workplace, okay? You know, it's just not commonly used.
Start to eventually see himself as a sort of person who could even rival Trump. Think of Icarus. You know, Icarus was ambitious and flew too close to the sun. That could be Musk. He could play with fire, incur Trump's wrath, and then lose grace. Or the way Musk sees it, he might be able to actually position himself in a way that he might make Trump look bad.
And just finally, I wanted to ask you about Musk's influence on the world in general. Should there be stronger sanctions?